Discuss this and more of today's top headlines. I'm Ernie Manouse.
And I'm guest host Houston Public Media reporter Michael Adkison. We'll also talk with City Controller Chris Hollins, who will share his thoughts on Mayor Whitmire's proposed plan for the city's budget.
Plus, we'll also hear my conversation with Eurovision commentator and BBC reporter William Lee Adams, who gives us an inside peek at the largest music event in the world.
And as always, we want to hear from you. Give us a call or text us at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And you can also watch us live on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, by Metro, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The U.S. war with Iran is hitting energy prices and has helped drive annual inflation to the highest level in roughly 3 years. Today, the Labor Department says consumer prices in April were 3.8% higher than the same time a year earlier. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is back on Capitol Hill defending the Pentagon's 2027 military budget request of $1.5 trillion. Jules Hurst III, the Pentagon's top budget and finance official, is telling members of Congress that the cost of the war is higher than the last estimate a couple of weeks ago, $4 billion higher.
At the time of testimony in front of the House, it was $25 billion. But the Joint Staff team and the Comptroller team are constantly looking at that estimate. And so now we think it's closer to 29. That's because of updated repair and replacement of equipment costs, and also just general operational costs to keep people in theater.
Her saying $29 billion. Some analysts estimate the war cost is much higher than that. The war is expected to be one of the issues discussed when President Trump travels to China. He leaves this afternoon. NPR's Domenico Montanaro reports on what people in the U.S. think of the U.S.-China relationship in a survey done by NPR in conjunction with the Chicago Council on Global Affairs and Ipsos.
In two polls over the last few months, there were some notable findings. First, Americans see China on the rise and eyeing a dominant role in the world. 78% say they believe China wants to be a dominant world leader, particularly economically. But respondents also say they want to keep a strong trading relationship with China, and they want tariffs lowered to keep costs down for U.S. consumers. Most also say the Iran war has been bad for both countries and their economies, but more Americans say the war is boosting China's geopolitical position than say it's helping U.S. national security. Domenico Montanaro, NPR News, Washington.
Some businesses that applied for tariff refunds are expected to start getting their money this week. NPR's Alina Selyukh reports it's been nearly 3 months since the Supreme Court ruled most of the tariffs President Trump ordered last year were illegal.
The U.S. government took about 2 months to set up an online system where companies that paid the illegal tariffs could request their money back. That's an estimated $166 billion, though not all of it is being processed in this first wave. U.S. Customs has also acknowledged that it did reject more than a third of refund claims for technical and data errors, though importers can refile. As of about 2 weeks ago, the agency said it had accepted claims covering about a fifth of all the shipments that are due refunds. Nike is the latest big company to face a class action lawsuit that argues shoppers should get a cut of any refunds because they paid the costs through higher prices. Nike declined comment. Alina Selyukh, NPR News.
It's NPR.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Tom Perumian. A Houston area mother has been charged with reckless injury to a child after her 2 kids were found unresponsive in a backyard swimming pool in Katy earlier this month. Laura Nicholson was arrested in Florida and booked in the Lee County Jail. Authorities say her daughters wandered into that backyard swimming pool as a result of a broken latch on a door. Multiple outlets report that the reason for the reckless endangerment charge is because cocaine was found in the system of the 2- and 3-year-olds who died. Multiple business owners on the Bolivar Peninsula in Galveston County are preparing to close shop ahead of the upcoming Jeep weekend. News 88.7's Juliana Washburn explains why.
What started as an annual gathering for Jeep enthusiasts turned into over 100,000 visitors heading to Bolivar Peninsula for the weekend. Authorities implemented road closures and beach access restrictions last year after the event became increasingly violent with hundreds of arrests. Donna Mersman owns the Panini Press at Crystal Beach. She says while those restrictions made her neighborhood safer, it also meant less business.
There wasn't any business last year because all the roads were blocked off and nobody was really moving. So it wasn't worth being open.
Mersman is choosing to close her restaurant doors for this year's Jeep Weekend, which runs from Thursday to Sunday. From the Galveston County Bureau, I'm Juliana Washburn, News 88.7.
Taking a look at sports, the Astros fall to the Seattle Mariners at Daikin Park last night, 3-1. The two teams match it up again tonight at Daikin at 7:10. Checking your weather, sunny with a high of 84 today. Nice day in store. Mostly clear tonight, 69 the overnight temperature. Right now, hazy, 78 degrees on the UH campus. Get more news and information. Go to houstonpublicmedia.org. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Subaru. The 2026 Subaru Outback features new styling as well as standard symmetrical all-wheel drive and EyeSight driver assist technology. Learn more at Subaru.com/Outback.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Hello Houston.
Hello there, Ernie Manouse here with you today, and sitting in with the Michael Adkison. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Ernie, and hello, Houston.
Very nice.
I know, that's what the show is called. Yes, hello, Houston.
Yes, you're on the right show today. For folks who are familiar with the name but don't know the bio, I know we do this every time you're on. Quick, give me the elevator speech. If you're
familiar with the name, that feels like such an accomplishment to me, even my name alone. No, I'm a reporter here at Houston Public Media, covering just about anything as long as it's interesting. Right now, these days, it's FIFA. And I know we're going to be talking about that in a second. I am all World Cup all the time these days. That is kind of my whole life at the moment.
Which is funny because I'm all Eurovision.
You're all Eurovision.
So both of us are international perspective lookers.
That's one way to put it, yes. We were having a discussion before the radio came on. I put Ernie to shame.
A feud.
Of what he had referred to in the cut-in just about 10 minutes or 20 minutes ago. He had referred to FIFA World Cup as another international competition. And I was like, I feel like Eurovision is kind of more the another international competition.
And maybe you were right.
Maybe we looked up who watches.
Oh my, you're going to bring up numbers.
This is a news program, Ernie. We bring in the numbers. The who watches Eurovision. Of course, I clicked out of it. But Eurovision. No. I still have it. The Eurovision Song Contest 2025 reached what they called a record-breaking 166 million viewers.
But a few years back, it reached over 200 million. So I don't know how you got record-breaking.
Unclear.
But anyway.
That being said, the 2022 FIFA World Cup reached 5 billion people. And the finals alone had 1.5 billion viewers.
So basically even.
In a certain sense. I'm sure per capita of, when it boils down.
Okay, so I will give you FIFA World Cup as the largest sporting event on the planet.
Sure.
And you give me Eurovision as the largest music event.
Oh, for sure. I mean, how else would we get ABBA,
How else would we have gotten Celine Dion?
Celine Dion? I didn't know Celine Dion got her start.
She did.
I'm a fake
87 maybe?
Yes, something like that.
So anyway, two major events we'll be talking about on today's show. One affects us right here directly, and the other affects me directly.
That's the one way to put it.
In addition to that, we're also going to be talking about something that's going to affect every one of us, and that is the city budget.
Right.
And the mayor has made his proposal for the budget. Chris Hollins, city controller, is going to be here with us to give his opinion on it and his thoughts on whether it works or doesn't work, whether it adds up, I guess is the best way to put it. We're also going to take a look at, we've been talking about FIFA. What we're going to talk about with FIFA is we're going to talk about, is the city ready when it comes to safety and protocols and all of that? Because we're expecting a huge influx of people.
As many as 500,000 is the number of people. And an interesting note, we'll get more into this later, an interesting note that was made, or I guess we'll get into it here soon. One note that I had heard was that Houston is not only going to be a spot that people go to for the World Cup, it's going to be a spot that people pass through to the World Cup. That the airport's going to be busy as people go to, say, Monterey or Mexico City from the United States. So that's something to consider for the. I know, I hadn't thought about that. That's an interesting note about the airports. Yeah.
We're also going to take a look at the Star of Hope coming up in just a little bit. A wonderful organization in our city and all the fine work they do.
Absolutely.
And the reason we're talking about Eurovision is we have William Lee Adams on the show today. He's a BBC commentator, does a lot with them, but he's also the founder and moving force behind a thing called WiWiBloggs, which is the #1 Eurovision online platform that critiques and interviews and covers Eurovision. So he's going to be here to tell us a little bit about what we should watch for since the first semifinal starts today.
I'll tell you what, I'm very excited for that conversation because you're going to be so disappointed. I'm basically going in blind. I haven't even seen that movie, the Eurovision movie that came out. I'm ready to get thrown into the deep end on this conversation.
Well, you're not going to have to worry because it was pre-taped.
Oh, there you go.
So you don't have to talk about it.
Dialed in, watching.
But what you can do is what we do every day is we start off the show with the news headlines. And since I've got a qualified news gentleman sitting right here next to me, take us into the headlines.
Qualified. All right. Well, we already started talking a little bit about the FIFA World Cup, but 1 month this week, 1 month from yesterday, technically, the 2026 FIFA World Cup will begin. And I believe it's 1 month from Thursday will be Houston's first match. This is being touted as the largest sporting event in human history, and organizers say Houston is up to par on its preparations for the tournament. Houston's first match won't be until June 14th, 3 days into the tournament, but officials are prepping for increased security, transportation services, and tourism throughout the entirety of the World Cup, which is going to go all the way through July 19th. Much of that is due to the fact that Houston is one of just 2 cities in North America to host a fan festival for all 104 matches across all 39 days of the tournament. Organizers said that it was happening in a press conference. They unveiled that there was just 2 cities in all of North America doing this. Metro, meanwhile, is expanding its services throughout much of the World Cup. From June 7th to July 11th, the Metro Rail will extend its hours of operation until midnight. And as mentioned, Houston airports are increasing their TSA lanes during the tournament. The federal government did provide funding for the Department of Homeland Security and TSA to operate at normal levels, and there will be a highly visible law enforcement presence throughout the entire World Cup key locations. So, Houston, what are your thoughts? Is the city, from your perspective, ready for the World Cup? And are you ready for all the festivities? Give us a call and let us know what you think. 713-440-8870. Ernie, it's coming. It's going to be huge.
I listen to this story and I think to myself, how much are we expecting for it to generate economically for the area, and how much is it costing us outside of grants and monies that were given to us to host this? So is there a balance in there?
I can answer generally those questions. So the number that the Houston Host Committee has touted, so, take this for what it is. It is the Houston Host Committee putting this number forward, but they believe it will bring a $1.5 billion economic impact to Houston in terms of people going to restaurants, people going to bars, people going to, different entertainment things that Houston has. And as far as how much are we paying for it, that's a little less clear. That, there was some reporting in the Houston Chronicle, I believe it was last week, in partnership with ProPublica, that looked at, how worth it is the World Cup when cities host. And I believe we actually had someone from Houston on Houston Matters this morning talking a little bit about this, of, when it comes to the end result and how much people invest in this and all the infrastructure costs, how worth it is it? And so, it's a little bit less clear because a lot of these negotiations on being able to host the World Cup are under wraps because the host committee has said that, if we share that information, if we share our contract, it's going to make us less of, an option for future big tournaments or big events that, we've revealed all our trade secrets, all our company secrets. And so people aren't going to want to bring, say, a Super Bowl or a World Series or not a World Series, a Super Bowl or other big tournaments here to Houston. So, there's a little bit of not clear, maybe unclear is not the right word, but we don't exactly know exactly how much of taxpayer money is going towards this.
Alex Garza comments in our YouTube chat, which is always a whole other show on its own out there. We have some great YouTubers, as we call them, and they're out there having a conversation about what we talk about on the show, and other topics come up. So if you're not there, go on over and take a look at what they're saying. But Alex Garza says, I don't think any city is fully ready for FIFA. I'm hearing that many are not attending in general due to super high ticket prices and now with all the higher costs for flights and lodging.
It is expensive.
I'd heard somewhere that a ticket is like $1,000.
So for me, my whole mom's side of the family is from Argentina. So we were very hopeful to go see Argentina play. And there was one match in particular that my schedule would align with that I wanted to go to. It's in Dallas. The tickets start at about $1,200.
Wow.
Yep. So, and that's on resale because, it's all sold out. So it is very expensive to get a ticket. Now, some matches I'll mention are a little bit cheaper. There's one here in Houston. I can't remember exactly which match it was, but I was looking at the prices. And again, this is all going to be on resale. But if you go on SeatGeek, which I believe is the official resale market for a lot of the World Cup matches, the tickets started at about $250. So, it depends on the match. It depends on a high-profile match. Argentina, of course, they're the reigning champions. It's going to be more expensive to go to that one. But, there is a lot of demand here, a lot of demand.
As we continue to chat about this, are you going to the World Cup? Are you going to go and see a match? Are you planning on going to the fan zone and hang out there and have some fun? Let us know what your plans are for World Cup. Have you made any yet? Or are you like me and you're like, oh, yeah, that's coming up. I haven't gotten to thinking about that yet. And I'm guessing from what I'm hearing, we should be thinking about it. Give us a call, 713-440-8870. I heard that to make this make sense fiscally, it's not so much that you want Houstonians to go to your matches because they'll buy a ticket, they go to the match, and they go back home.
Right.
You want these tourists that are going to come in and take advantage of all our city has to offer.
Certainly that makes sense. And I think that is, I've never been to a World Cup before, but I think that is
from
where...
the prices, it sounds like you won't be the one.
Sounds like I won't be going. I'll just be hanging out on the outside as a reporter, interviewing people who get to go inside.
Yeah.
No, so there's there's a lot of demand here. I will mention that I went to the World Cup trophy, visited Houston last weekend. I went on a Sunday afternoon. I expected a few hundred people in line, nothing crazy. I was told that it was anywhere between 10 to 15,000 people came over the weekend.
Wow.
Yes. And predominantly people from other countries, Hispanic people. It was not a lot of white people came to see it because, I think that's a testament to the World Cup is such a phenomenon outside of the United States that, it's a little bit difficult to wrap your mind around if you haven't experienced it before.
We're inviting you to join the conversation. 713-440-8870. Adrian from Sugar Land is on the line. Adrian, what's on your mind?
Yes, I am a great fan. I grew up in a soccer-playing country from Nigeria. And Nigeria, of course, hasn't been doing great as far as or any African country to have emerged. No African country has emerged to be a champion of the World Cup. My question really is this. Does the FIFA World Cup charge the host country any amount to host the game, and if so, how much?
That's good question there. Do you know that? Is there a fee?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'm sure there is. There's a lot of the problem here is FIFA is a private organization, and so we actually can't get all the information that we would say a government entity. But there is a certain level of deal making that's to be done, I believe, when it comes to FIFA and when it comes to being able to host these. That goes for basically anything: the Super Bowl, concerts, festivals. There's a certain level of a price that you have to pay, essentially. So it would not shock me. I would assume that these host cities and host countries did have to at least pay something to ensure that this happens. And I know that was the focus a lot of the Houston Chronicle's reporting, was that FIFA is certainly expected to make a profit off of all this because of the licensing, because of the deals, the advertising that they get. So FIFA itself is certainly expected to generate a profit from hosting the World Cup. The question that the Houston Chronicle posed was, how much are we as Houstonians going to benefit from it?
Also, what's interesting about it is it definitely raises the profile of soccer in this country, which if I'm FIFA, I want to break into the U.S. market.
Certainly.
And we have had a hard time with soccer catching on to the level that you would expect from a country like this. Also, to go back to something we were talking about when we were talking about the finances of all of it and how much it costs to prepare our city for this event. We've talked about this on the show before. Once FIFA rolls on and moves on, we still have a lot of that infrastructure in place. So improvements to public transportation, all that, we benefit possibly long term.
That's one of the things that Houston has really focused on. I can speak about their investments is, it's not quite like the Olympics where we have to build stadiums, but we are making investments in infrastructure. There's, a lot of the sidewalks and roads are being repaved in preparation for the World Cup. There's been a big investment from the Houston World Cup host committee in what they're calling the Green Corridor, which is, in the ideal world, it's going to be a little bit more of a walkable Houston that could get you from East Downtown all the way to NRG Stadium. You're giving me a look, Ernie. If you're watching the live stream, you can see. And I think that is one of the big questions is, how many people are going to take advantage of this walking in the heat of July from East Downtown?
On the line at 713-440-8870, Robin from Northwest Houston. Robin, what's on your mind?
Hi, I just had a couple of comments and don't really have a question. I'm actually going to volunteer at the airport, and I'm super excited about that. So I'm going to do 5 shifts at the airport. We did have to do special clearance security because we're going to the gates, actually, and escorting people from the gates to the transportation area. But I also bought 2 sets of tickets for 2 of the games, and you guys talked about ticket prices. I did buy mine last fall from SeatGeek. About $500 per person, but my husband's Brazilian, huge soccer fan, huge soccer player as a kid growing up. So we're excited on both fronts. I'm excited to go to a game and actually be behind the scenes in the volunteer part. It's a huge amount of volunteers that they had to interview and screen, and that whole process was kind of interesting.
Yeah, absolutely, Robin. I think that there's something to be said about the excitement for this, and that you can't really put a price on the excitement.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about how much it's going to cost and how much money we're actually going to get. But I think there's something to be said about people are excited for this phenomenon that's going to be in our backyard, essentially. So that's one aspect to all of this.
Thank you for calling. Really quickly, I want to grab Karen. We've only got about 30 seconds. So Karen, what's on your mind from the 2nd Ward?
Oh, thank you, Ernie. I am wondering what kind of HPD presence will be in places near FanFest, like 2nd Ward and Edo, because the traffic and the crowding is going to go well beyond the confines of the FanFest property.
Karen, I love your question, and that's what we're going to be addressing in the 2nd hour of the show. We're going to be talking about the security concerns surrounding this, and we will definitely bring your question in there, okay? Thank you, Karen. Okay, we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, Chris Hollins is here. We're going to take a look at this proposed city budget that came from our mayor and get some insight from him.
All right, looking forward to it.
All
Stay
that's
with us.
Coming up right here on Hello Houston.
On the next Fresh Air, Joanna.
Meet Tio Choco. We just took his keys for the day and gave him a Ride Metro fare card. This is his story. Visit ridemetro.org/Choco to find out where is Choco.
As a boyfriend, she'll tell us what she learned about AI's current capabilities. Join us.
Fresh Air tonight at 8 on News 88.7.
I'm Scott Tong. In China this week. At the upcoming Trump-Xi summit, trade will be an issue, and China has leverage, rare earth minerals the U.S. needs.
I think China has, for the first time, really turned the tables on Washington because they've identified a weak spot with the president, something that is really important to him.
That's next time and Here and Now.
Here and Now at 1 o'clock after Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Support comes from the Houston Symphony presenting Holst's The Planets and Jennifer Higdon's Blue Cathedral, plus Houston's favorite Augustin Hadelich returns for Tchaikovsky's Violin Concerto. Concerts start this Friday at Jones Hall, houstonsymphony.org.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, a workers' compensation provider that's been caring for hardworking Texans for over 30 years. More at texasmutual.com/expert partner.
Support also comes from Baylor College of Medicine, Baylor's work centers on advancing health and medicine through research, education, and patient care. Support also from Metro. World Cup planning includes transit improvements intended to serve Houston after the final match. Metro provides bus, rail, and paratransit service and continues mobility enhancements across the region. More at ridemetro.org/ Metro Now.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now Ernie Manouse and guest host Michael Adkison.
Okay, last week, Houston Mayor John Whitmire unveiled his proposed budget for the next fiscal year, pitching it as, quote, a way to help the city avoid a major financial shortfall. But not everyone is on board with this plan. Joining us now is Houston City Controller Chris Hollins, who has raised concerns about the proposal and what it could mean for taxpayers and city services. Controller Hollins, welcome back to the program.
Hey, good morning. Always a pleasure to be here.
If you'd like to join the conversation, call us 713-440-8870. We've talked about this topic a bit. We've come back and forth around it. The first thing that stands out to me, and maybe I'm missing something, it seems like all of his eggs, the mayor's eggs, are in this basket of this trash fee. And I've got a lot of concern about it. If someone doesn't pay it, what happens to the trash? All of that ins and outs. Does the trash fee alone that he is proposing, $5 a month initially, maybe moving up to $25 over time, does that generate enough revenue to do all they're hoping to accomplish?
It doesn't, not even close. And so I wouldn't describe it as all the eggs being in that basket because, again, that's a really small basket. The $5 trash fee is only going to generate, in a perfect scenario, about $24 million. Now, the cost of solid waste today is closer to $120 million, and it's only going to go up over time. And so this fee doesn't even get close to actually paying for solid waste. And the mayor's plan, where I think most of the eggs are, is draining the water fund to pay for trash. And then separately, draining the water fund even further to pay for police and firefighters with a transfer from water over to the general fund. Now, I know I just said a lot.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to get it all in, yeah.
So we have a trash fee that's a new cost for Houstonians, but it doesn't improve the service, nor does it actually cover the cost of the service. It's really being funded with water money. And then number two is there's an additional transfer on top of paying for trash that's going over to the general fund to the tune of $104 million. That's going to pay for things that you thought you were already paying for with your property taxes. And so what we're seeing is a repeated trend of draining fund after fund. First, we went after Metro, right? We cut off the Metro Next plan, drained down tens of millions of dollars to pay for traffic cops and streetlights. Then we went over to the general fund, ran up the two largest deficits in city history in the last 2 years. And now we're going after the water money that's supposed to be going towards fixing all these leaky pipes, money that's supposed to be going towards addressing the consent decree that we're under from the federal government, and instead spending it on trash and police and firefighters. It's a problem, plain and simple.
Step back a little bit and give me a full rundown, as you understand it, of what his budget proposal is outside of just this particular area of it. What is he saying in this budget, and what has you concerned in addition to what you just said?
Sure. So it's a $7.5 billion budget. We often focus most on the general fund because that's where your property taxes and your sales taxes go, and that's what has historically paid for the things we think of most, police, firefighters, picking up your trash, investing in parks, libraries, public health, right? These are all general fund expenses. This budget does a couple of things. One, it takes solid waste out of the general fund altogether and puts it over on your water bill and charges you for it. And that charge starts off small, but it balloons, and we can talk about that more in a second. Number two, on top of that move, it dumps another $100 million from that same water fund back over into the general fund to subsidize, raises to employees that we haven't figured out another way to pay for. And then number three, it has more deficit spending. It has some of the same, gimmicks and mistakes that we've experienced and talked about on this show for years now. An overtime number that's not realistic, savings numbers that are not described in terms of how we're actually going to achieve those savings, and a number of other risks that ultimately are going to potentially lead to a downgrade for the city of Houston. But, if you let the mayor tell it, he says we solved all the world's problems by tapping this new source of funds that didn't exist before. And the truth is that fund has existed and is supposed to be paying for critical water and sewer infrastructure.
I think for me, one of the questions is, I believe you would agree that there does need to be some sort of trash fund. Would you not?
There has to be a new revenue source. Where that comes from is a choice of different policymakers, right? So a trash fee, for example, is an even fee charged by everybody. So the rich and the poor would pay the same $5, and again, that would go up. A property tax, you could raise the same amount of revenue by charging poor people less and rich people more. Now that's a policy choice, but ultimately, you're just solving for new revenue. And yes, in addition to addressing costs, because our costs are out of control, they've gone up 20% over the last 3 budgets. You might also look at revenue options.
But when it comes to property taxes that you mentioned, there are difficulties with getting that done. The state has essentially said that they don't want people in local governments to raise property taxes more than they have to. Attorney General Ken Paxton has investigated some cities in the Houston area for attempting to raise property taxes. So I think the devil's advocate might say that when you have a city like Houston whose hands are tied, but there is an issue, you do what you can, and even if it takes some politicking, you do what you can. What's your thought to that?
Yeah, there's no perfect answer, and so again, these are policy choices. But we've talked a lot about the revenue cap over the last decade in Houston, but these last 3 budgets, they have not collected even up to that revenue cap, and so that money is foregone, right? The last 2 years, it's been about $50 million a year that the city has not collected. This year, what's in the budget is collecting about $20 million below that revenue cap. And so that's $120 million that we've decided not to collect. Now, again, it's a choice. But money doesn't grow on trees. And so if we're not going to collect it from property taxes, you have to collect it from somewhere else. And the mayor's choice in this proposed budget is to add the garbage fee.
And explain that to me of why you think the administrative fee is not the right answer to this.
Yeah, again, I'm not saying it's not the right answer. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. It's simply a choice. It's set to raise $24 million. And if you wanted to raise $24 million, if you're the city of Houston, you have a number of ways you could do that. You could put it on the water bill as an actual fee to all water customers. You could make a garbage fee, which is a fee charged to garbage customers, which is a smaller base, or a property tax fee, which would go to everybody, right? And those are choices. Who do you want to tax? Who do you want to bear the brunt of that expense is a policy choice. And my job sitting here or in the controller seat is not to say which policy we should choose. It's just to do the math and tell the truth about what's in there.
So does the mayor talk with you about a proposal like this before it's announced? Is there conversation that happens? Is there making sure the numbers work? Or does the proposal come out and then you get to react?
So in the past couple of years, we get the budget on the day that it's announced. This year, we got a briefing on this garbage fee and the utility transfer about 2 or 3 weeks in advance. Mm-hmm. It was pretty high level. We still don't have the ins and outs of the data and the assumptions, even this moment. But then again, the budget itself that has some of those numbers in it, we got at the same time you did, Ernie. Mm-hmm. And so once we get that, we just start to dig into it. It's a 350-page document. We're going into the weeds of it. And then, we learn what we can, and then we share that with these Houstonians in a way that they can understand. And so tonight is actually our first town hall in the reality check series. I've sat here, again, time and time again, saying, hey, we just got to be real with Houstonians. We have to tell them the truth, and let's try to break it down into plain English or even plain Spanish. And so tonight is the first instance of that at HCC North Forest at 6:30 p.m. We're having Reality Check Town Hall number 1. And this is a series of 6 different town halls that we're having all over the city of Houston over the next couple of weeks. And so I know we won't cover like every single base right on this show today, but that gives Houstonians an opportunity, if they're interested, to tune in, and we'll be available online virtually as well, to hear a more in-depth description of what's going on in the budget and to ask questions and get real answers to those questions.
We have the mayor coming on the show on Thursday to talk about this also. What questions would you suggest we ask him about this?
Sure. There's a couple questions. So, number one, in our water fund, we're claiming that we have an excess of money that we don't know what to do with. Well, how do we get that money? Did we charge water customers too much? Or did we not invest in infrastructure projects that we were supposed to invest in according to the plan? That's a good question to ask. Question number 2 is, hey, going forward, are all the water challenges fulfilled at this point? If not, why are we spending this money on trash and on police and on firefighters instead of the water system? The garbage fee. The mayor said last week, hey, we're going to start at $5, and if we're smart, we may never have to increase it past $5. Well, why, Mayor, is the official trash study that just got released last week, why does it say that the cost of serving Houstonians today is about $30 plus per customer, and if you look forward in a few years, it'll be $46? How are we going to manage that on a $5 fee? Those are questions that you might want to ask.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned police and firefighters, and what I see here is it's an $1.2 billion going toward police, little over $700 million going toward firefighters. Mm-hmm. We're often talking about these particular people and how they fit into the budget and these increases in salary and all that. Is there a way to find balance in that? Or is this always going to be a problem and it's going to drain at the level it drains from us?
It's always a question of balance. Again, these are tough choices. We don't have the option that the federal government has of just printing out money or running up crazy deficits. Now, we have had crazy deficits for the last 2 years, but we've been spending down a savings account in order to pay for it. Now that savings account is starting to run out, which is why the mayor is pivoting to try and drain a new source of funds, which is our water fund. But that too will run out. So another question to ask is, hey, if we're taking $200 million additional out of the water fund every single year, how quick will that drain down to zero? That is a question that we're still digging into in the controller's office, and we'll be talking about in these town halls here over the next few weeks.
We're talking with Houston City Controller Chris Hollins. If you would like to join the conversation, give us a call or text 713-440-8870. Chris, I want to go back to what you were talking about when you mentioned the report, the study that had come out about how much it's going to cost to solve, to really get everyone's trash needs addressed. I think that trash is one of those things that everyone's got it, and so everyone has an opinion on it.
Sure.
So if Mayor Whitmire had come forward with a budget proposal and it was a $35, $40 trash fee to address the issue, what would your response have been? Because then it would have, as you mentioned in this report, addressed the trash problem adequately. What would your takeaway have been had it been higher than just $5?
At minimum, it would have been honest, right? Now, it might have been sticker shock to Houstonians, right? $35 a month, that gets you up to what, $420 a year? And for some Houston households, they say, great, I'd love to pay that if I was going to get world-class trash pickup service. And other families would say, man, I don't know what I would possibly do to afford that additional $400. So there's questions there, but at least we would be being honest with Houstonians. What we're telling them today is we're going to start you at $5. And again, the mayor is saying and has said publicly, we may never increase it beyond $5. That's simply not backed up by the numbers. The mayor's staff has looked at city council in the eye because council is saying, hey, can you guarantee us this will never go beyond $25? And they look back and they say, in fact, it may never even get to $25. We think we're going to reduce the cost of trash pickup across Houston. Well, why then does our study say that we're going to increase the cost over the course of 5 years in order to buy more trucks, hire more people to actually reach a rate of trash pickup that's acceptable across Houston customers? Why does it say that it's going to cost us $46 a family, and you're promising that it'll never go above $25? That doesn't make sense. And so, I'm the math guy. I'm the guy that brings the numbers and the facts to the conversation, and so that's what we're doing here with our reality check.
And I guess this goes back to where we started this conversation, and please help me where I'm missing the point here. It seems like all we keep talking about in trying to fix this budget and get a handle on it is this one trash fee, which, by the numbers, doesn't add up anyway. Are there other answers, solutions, suggestions within this proposed budget that says these are other ways we can fix this?
I don't believe so. Again, the main thing that we're doing here is subsidizing trash and police and fire and parks with water fund money. You pay that money. This is not free. Money does not grow on trees, and it also doesn't grow in water pipes. We pay that in our water bills, right? And what we expect is that when we turn on the taps, clean water comes out. And we also expect that the system will be invested in so that it works for years and years to come. We're not paying that water bill saying, oh, you're going to pay for all this other stuff from it. That's where transparency comes in. We need to be honest about what this fee is for and then spend it on that. Not, hope Houstonians are looking the other way and then try to plug these holes with their water money.
So your recommendation, if you were asked by the mayor for your recommendation of how to get us to a point where, I don't even want to say we're balanced, but we're in the right direction, what would your recommendation be from the numbers you see?
Be honest with Houstonians. Decide what our vision is for Houston. Decide the steps that we need to take to achieve that mission. Understand how much it truly costs to get that stuff done. Raise that money. Be straightforward with Houstonians about how much that costs and get them to buy in to that plan.
What would it cost?
Well, the study says that on the low side, getting to 99% on-time trash pickup, which is standard service across the country, is going to take a couple of years, and it's going to cost us, I believe, about $160 million a year, which is a pretty dramatic increase from today. It projects that that's going to be $46 per household.
Okay, but outside of just trash collection, for the
sure.
city itself to get to a place we need to be at this point, and I'm not saying perfectly balanced out, but to be headed in the right direction, what kind of an impact per person would you feel it would take?
I'm going to be honest with you that I don't have that number right this moment. I've been knee-deep in garbage and water for the past couple of weeks. Yeah. But it's something certainly worth thinking about. But we haven't started at step one of what's the vision to begin with. If we had that, then we could price it out. But at this moment, that doesn't even exist.
We don't have a whole lot of time, but I do want to ask this, that what do you do if you have this plan and it doesn't work out? I'm thinking about Austin that came forward with this capital campaign and the voters rejected it. People don't like to pay more money, even if there are essential needs and services that it would go towards. So what would the solution be, knowing that sometimes it doesn't work out when the voters reject proposals? Does that make sense?
It does. In this instance, I don't believe that it's going to the voters at all. Look, I believe in the concept of democracy, right? And so I think that in our seats, we should be, again, being honest and transparent, sharing what the plan is and the benefits of that plan and the warts and the costs, right? And then saying, this is the best choice for Houston. We want you to buy in, and then getting that approval before moving forward. What we're seeing here is a proposal that in a month's time is going to go to City Council for a vote. And after that, that's it. And so if City Council decides there's going to be a garbage fee, at whatever amount it is, that's going to be it. There's nothing that's going to the voters for approval here. And so there's not even an opportunity for the kind of rejection that you're speaking of.
And with that, Houston City Controller Chris Hollins, thank you for joining us.
I look forward to coming back and talking about comedy with you.
Yeah, we'll bring you back. Coming up next, Eurovision. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
Meet Gamola, songwriter, world-class violinist, and award-winning multi-genre artist. We just took his keys for the day and gave him a Ride Metro fare card. Visit ridemetro.org/Gamola to learn more about his ride.
There is strength in speaking truth to power, but you have to find the opportunity.
If we can't create the prisms so people can see them more clearly, then we can't transform them.
Kimberly Crenshaw on her work in critical race theory and why she feels all people have the power to push for change. That's next time on Think.
Listen to Think tonight at 11 o'clock on News 88.7.
Typically for us humans, we each carry 2 sets of chromosomes, but many plants have more, and researchers scoured plant DNA to find out why.
These whole genome duplications, they do not occur randomly. They are clustered in time.
Times of big global environmental changes like the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs or global warming. I'm Elsa Chang. That's story on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Listen to All Things Considered starts at 3 o'clock this afternoon on News 88.7.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from CertaPro Painters, offering residential and commercial painting services, from color consultations to full project management. Estimates and more at CertaPro.com.
Support also comes from Near Northwest Management District, celebrating 25 years at the intersection of innovation. More information at nnmd.org. Support also from attorney mediator Ron Bankston, providing in-person video conference and hybrid mediation and arbitration services. More information is available at ronbankston.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Ernie Manouse and guest host Michael Adkison.
Beginning today, it's the largest televised music event on the planet with over 200 million viewers. The Eurovision Song Contest promises to entertain as 35 countries from across Europe and beyond compete for the honor of winning the contest and taking the trophy back to their home country. To give us an inside peek at some of this year's contestants, we reached out to the internet's #1 source for all things Eurovision, the BBC's William Lee Adams, author of Wild Dances and founder of WiWiBloggs on Instagram and YouTube. Hello, William.
Hi, Ernie. Thank you for that very warm introduction.
A little stumbly, but there's so much to say about WiWiBloggs, which really has a phenomenal reach within the Eurovision and outside of the Eurovision world.
Yeah, sometimes you fall into a rabbit hole and then it's hard to get out of it. And I feel like while I've been down there under the dirt, I've just been building WiWiBloggs, but it's a real community. Love my colleagues, love their passion for Eurovision. And it's always great to meet the fans and the singers because Eurovision, it is a community. People often don't realize that. It's not just the one night. We kind of, we meet all the time. We talk all the time online, in person, and right now.
Yeah. Okay. So we have to start at the point where a lot of folks in the U.S., they may know of Eurovision probably from the Will Ferrell movie, which you made a cameo in. But explain to people what Eurovision is in the elevator pitch.
Eurovision is a pan-European song contest that searches for Europe's best new original song. This is not a karaoke cover contest like American Idol or The X Factor. These are original songs. Each country sends one song. It's 3 minutes in length. And the singers, they can be amateurs, startups, unknowns, or they can already be global superstars.
Yeah, you mentioned global superstar. Boy George is actually performing this year.
Indeed he is. This is a crazy, exciting, ridiculous situation where the singer from San Marino, this is the 4th time she's been selected to represent San Marino. She was going to go in 2020, but it got canceled. So she's been on that stage 3 times. Last time she showed up with Flo Rida, the American rapper. Yes. This time she's bringing Boy George, the British singer. She's very wealthy, so I think it's quite easy for her to get people on board.
And I think the funny thing was in her earlier presentation of the song, Boy George popped in on a video in the background. I've worked with Boy for different times over the years and have found him. He can be challenging, is I think the nicest way to put it. I was so surprised to hear that he was actually going to come to the contest and come on to do his part in her song.
Yeah, it's really interesting because there's no reason for him to have to do this, right? He's done very well for himself. And I asked him that question in London recently, and he said, look, I've done a lot of my life, but I've not been to Eurovision. It's so crazy. It's so wild. Why wouldn't I do it? And he actually had to Google if he was allowed to represent San Marino. He kept saying, is this legal? But it is legal, and he's there. And it'll be a moment, He is such a presence. People know him. He's the biggest star this year. And I think a lot of the other singers are kind of awestruck.
Yeah. You talk about, is he allowed or not allowed? What people may not know is when it comes to Eurovision, there are very strict rules and lots of rules. To be able, though, to represent a country, what does your affiliation with that country have to be?
You know what? You don't have to have one. Celine Dion from Canada won for Switzerland. Switzerland was like, we want a good singer. They went and found one. So each country has a different approach. Now, there are certain countries, for instance, Armenia, where they put a lot of emphasis on a singer being Armenian or being from the Armenian diaspora. And I don't think a Boy George would be invited to represent a country like Armenia. But for a country like San Marino, population 33,000, I mean, it's tiny. They don't necessarily have a lot of singers. That's why they so often send singers more than once. So I think in San Marino in particular, there's the freedom to look abroad. Sanit, the singer herself, she's from Italy, and she's representing San Marino, and she's brought on a British singer, just as she brought on Flo Rida a few years ago. And funny enough, Flo Rida, it was unclear if he would actually be at Eurovision or if he'd show up on time, because apparently he had some kind of wet t-shirt contest he was hosting or rapping at. So the mind boggles. He made it in the end.
All right. I'm going to go into some of the acts this year because there's some I've got to know your inside scoop on because you have it better than anyone. The song I am most excited for this year, I'm feeling a little bad because the things I'm seeing are saying we're not going to win it. We may do well, but not win it. We are talking about Malta. I'm in love with Aiden. Bella, Bella, Bella. But I hear now, I've avoided looking at any of the rehearsal footage, so I've seen nothing yet. But I hear that what may bring him closer to contention to winning is it's going to be an amazing stage presentation. What do you know?
Yeah, so sorry for any spoilers here, Ernie.
Oh, no.
But on stage, it's mostly black. There's a lot of darkness in the photos we've seen so far. But then there's this large, I would describe it as a garden fixture, like a very fancy Kim Kardashian gazebo. It's basically white beams of light. It looks like a circus tent or an elaborate garden setting, and he's inside of it. And now in the other photos they've shown, you see shadowy images. I guess they represent memories of this woman, Bella, who he loved, dancing and moving in the various windows. He himself is wearing all black with a few metallic embellishments. It's sleeveless, and it's very, how do I say this? It's Brokeback Mountain, but very vaudeville. It's like a vaudeville Brokeback Mountain. I'm getting cowboy. I'm getting... not of the night, but of the saloon. There's a romance to this. He's got his mustache. It feels to me very 1920s.
Well, what I do know is he has released an album, and on it, the lead single on that is Cowboys Don't Cry. So he's definitely linked that, which I thought an interesting approach. He's got a song in Eurovision, so he released an album leading up to it as opposed to releasing an album after you win or have competed, which I think can then help build a fan base that then may vote on Eurovision Saturday.
Yeah, it's a good insight. And, it's a funny one because he's got a lot of good songs on that album. Cowboys Don't Cry in particular, I think is a fantastic song. Mm-hmm. But I think he went for Bella, this song, because it feels like it's from a movie. It feels old world, and it's in the Maltese language. I think it's the first song ever from Malta that's entirely in Maltese. He always says it's been more than 50 years, but now we've got our language front and center.
I do want to, before we run out of time, get to some of the ones that are definitely in the front-running position. I don't get this. I think we've talked about this online in little messages back and forth. I don't get Finland, but everyone is saying Finland is far and ahead in the odds to win, though Sweden fell into that trap last year and didn't win. What do you think? What is the draw of Finland, the guy singing, the woman playing the mad violin? Talk to me.
So one of my friends sent me a message today saying, I think that Pete, the lead vocalist, I think his pectoral muscles will get more votes than the United Kingdom. And I took a step back and I was like, okay, you're calling him telegenic. You've got two beautiful people here. Pete Parkkinen, he's in his 30s, he's muscle bound, he's got a real presence, rocky, raspy vocal. And then you've got Linda Lampenius, who is a world-famous violinist, very blonde, very statuesque, a mature woman in her 50s. She's lived, and Pete on stage is in love with her. He's chasing her. The song is called Flamethrower because she, in real life, she has said, would lead people on. She's very hot. She burns hot, but then when people get too close, she turns to ice. And so they're playing on that theme. And you really do see that because Ernie, honestly, watch that performance. She doesn't smile. She's deliberately giving you Ice Queen.
But also, if I'm correct in this, if they win, and this seems so ageist, she would be the oldest person to ever win Eurovision, and she's only in her early 50s.
Isn't that remarkable? It's crazy. I think that while obviously we should value youth culture, young people, I do think there's ageism in pop music after a certain age. And the fact is, she has lived, she has so many stories to tell, and she's just really interesting. Her age is an asset. You know, when you read about her, my goodness, she could write not just a book, several. One of the best anecdotes is that when she was young and becoming famous as a violinist, her label and managers were like, "You've got to sex it up." And she's like, "I'm a violinist." So yeah, she's really been through the ringer.
Well, I've seen the song. She took their advice. She definitely sexed it up. One big thing that is Eurovision is that the lead vocal is sung live and everything else is pre-recorded. There has been talk about whether or not she will be granted dispensation to actually play the violin. Where do we land on that at this point?
So it's a slippery slope for the producers and organizers, because if they let Linda play live, who's going to want to play what next live? You know, that's their fear. Things could go wrong. What if she trips? You know, if it's pre-recorded, she can keep going. There are a lot of reasons not to let her, but she plays anyways. This is the thing. She told interviewers in London, she's like, if I'm not playing, it's awkward. So I play along anyways, even if you can't hear me. So they would just have to turn on the mic attached to her violin. At the moment, we don't know. There's not been a positive sign that there will be a yes. She did play live with a mic at a Eurovision party here in London in front of about 5,000 people, and it sounded great. But to be honest, as a viewer, you're not going to know the difference unless it goes wrong. So I'm tempted to say just leave it as it is.
Yeah. Quickly, a couple other acts then. Let's talk about Greece. Boy, oh boy, they came out of nowhere this year.
Yeah, this is so interesting. The song is Fairto. It means gimme, and it's a statement on overconsumption, consumerist culture. He says, give me the sushi, give me the sashimi, give me the gold watches, give me the fast cars. But he himself used to work on a cruise ship. His family was in poverty. He said repeatedly that just a few weeks ago, he was busking on the streets, and now he's representing Greece at Eurovision. And at the bridge, during the bridge, he has this emotional moment where it's almost a cappella, and he sings to his mother, and he says, "Oh, I'll buy us things. It'll fill the holes in our lives." And obviously it won't. Buying things does not make people happy. And so the song, it has a strong message, but it's playful and fun. He wears kitty cat ears. He comes down on a little moped, a scooter. And they've used, I don't know how to describe it, but the walls are cartoon. The floor is cartoon. It's like he's in a video game and there's an 8-bit sound. So it's like Super Mario Brothers from the 80s for today.
Well, the interesting thing is that there are 35 songs competing this year. As we speak today, there are still 35 in contention. Tomorrow, Tuesday, 5 of them drop out, I believe it is, because there's the first semifinal. On Thursday, there's the second semifinal. And then on Saturday, 25 songs compete, correct?
That's right.
Because we're not doing 26 this year because we're down one big 5 member, correct?
Exactly. Spain stepped aside, so just 25.
Right. People this year, too, are able to watch it globally on YouTube, and they will be able to watch it on YouTube right here in this country. So just look for the Eurovision YouTube channel, and you can watch along. We've barely broke the surface of what is in this, but it is a sight for the eyes and the ears, and really something quite amazing. If you've never seen it, you owe it to yourself to go and see it on YouTube, or Peacock, I think, airs it here too. William, thank you so much for doing this with us.
Oh, thank you, Ernie. Always good to hear from you.
And that's William Lee Adams, Eurovision commentator who runs WiWiBloggs, which you can follow on Instagram and YouTube. He's also the author of the book Wild Dances, My Queer and Curious Journey to Eurovision. I'll be hosting my annual Eurovision watch party this Saturday, starting at 1 p.m. at the Montrose Country Club, and it's free for anyone to attend, and all are welcome. Coming up, the second hour of Hello Houston.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Want to binge All Creatures Great and Small? Catch up on Nova or revisit Ken Burns documentaries? You can with PBS Passport. With a gift of $5 or more per month to Houston Public Media, you'll get access to PBS Passport that lets you watch your favorite programs anytime you want. Support the programs you love and enjoy them on your own schedule with PBS Passport. Make your gift now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Metro. World Cup planning includes trends and improvements intended to serve Houston after the final match. Metro provides bus, rail, and paratransit service and continues mobility enhancements across the region. More at ridemetro.org/Metro now. This is your NPR station, KUHF Houston News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston at 12 o'clock.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has filed lawsuit against Netflix, accusing the streaming platform of illegally collecting user data about what they watch. We'll discuss this lawsuit and more of the top headlines of the day. I'm Ernie Manouse.
And I'm guest host Houston Public Media reporter Michael Adkison. We'll also talk with Memorial Hermann's Adam Lee and infectious disease specialist Dr. Louis Ostrosky, who will discuss preparing for health emergencies during the FIFA World Cup.
Plus, the president and CEO of the Houston-based homeless shelter Star of Hope will tell us all about their work and impact in our community.
Also, we want to hear from you, so give us a call or text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Or you can also watch us live on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, by Metro, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The U.S. war with Iran has pushed inflation to its highest level in nearly 3 years. NPR's Scott Horsley tells us more about the latest cost of living report from the Labor Department.
Consumer prices in April were up 3.8% from a year ago. That's the biggest annual increase since May of 2023. Prices jumped 0.6% in the last month alone. Higher energy prices, triggered by the closing of the Strait of Hormuz, accounted for about 40% of that overall monthly increase. Gasoline prices have jumped about $1.50 since the war began, and diesel prices are even higher. That's also starting to show up in the price of other goods and services. The price of plane tickets, for example, is up more than 20% from a year ago, as airlines struggle with soaring jet fuel prices. Higher trucking costs may have also contributed to a sharp monthly jump in grocery prices. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
President Trump set to leave shortly for a state visit to China. He's expected to urge President Xi Jinping to persuade Iran to agree to U.S. conditions for ending a war the U.S. and Israel initiated in late February. Iran and China are close allies and trading partners. As Trump seeks Chinese support, he is bringing along corporate executives representing more than a dozen companies from Tesla to Meta that have major business interests in China. They include Apple's outgoing CEO Tim Cook. As NPR's Don Ruich reports, Cook's being replaced by an executive who led hardware engineering teams for nearly all of Apple's best-known products.
Apple said the company faced supply chain constraints for its iPhone and Mac businesses. Unprecedented investment in artificial intelligence has pushed demand for memory chips through the roof. That's caused memory chip prices to soar. And Cook said he doesn't see the supply crunch easing. He expects significantly higher memory costs, which will impact Apple's business. Still, executives projected confidence. John Turnus, who takes over from Cook as CEO in September, said the company has an exciting roadmap ahead.
NPR's Don Ruich. The WHO reports 11 cases of the rodent-borne illness hantavirus in connection with an outbreak on a cruise ship. The U.S. is among the countries contact tracing and quarantining a group of passengers from that ship. Here's NPR's Gabriela Manuel.
While hantavirus can cause very serious illness, the risk to the public at large is extremely low. Among the biggest reasons, hantavirus does not spread from one person to another that easily. Scott Weaver is with the University of Texas Medical Branch.
So if a person becomes infected with this hantavirus and there are no control measures in place, they're going to transmit on average to 2 other people.
Compare that with COVID, where he says an infected person can now pass it on to more than 10 people. And for measles, 15 other people get infected from one case on average. Gabriela Emanuel, NPR News.
It's NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Tom Perumian. A worker at Houston Methodist Hospital is recovering at home today after being stabbed multiple times inside a parking garage. Authorities say the woman was sitting in her car when a man walked up and attacked her. Several employees at the hospital saw the incident and rushed to help. She was transported to an emergency room. A man dressed in a red hoodie fled the attack. Police are searching for him. A new survey shows Congressman Christian Menefee leading Congressman Al Green by 7 percentage points in the Democratic primary runoff for Texas's new 18th congressional district. That's according to the latest survey from the University of Houston's Hobby School of Public Affairs. The 18th congressional district is a historically black Democratic stronghold that now stretches from Fort Bend County through downtown Houston and into the northern suburbs. Mark Jones of Rice University's Baker Institute co-authored the survey.
Menefee finished first back in March by 2%. He's retaining a significantly larger share of his March vote than his Green, and twice as many voters of third-place candidate Amanda Edwards in March are supporting Menefee rather than Edwards.
Meanwhile, in the Republican primary runoff for Texas's 9th congressional district, the survey shows former Harris County Judge Alex Mealer leading State Representative Briscoe Cain by 9 percentage points. The district includes parts of East Harris County and all of Liberty County. Taking a look at sports, the Astros and Seattle Mariners tee it up again tonight at Daikin Park. First pitch is at 7:10. Houston dropped Monday night's opener 3-1. Checking your weather, sunny with a high of 84. Very nice day in store. Mostly clear tonight, 69 degrees, the overnight low. Right now, partly cloudy, 78 degrees on the UH campus. Get more news and information. Go to houstonpublicmedia.org. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Capital One, offering their premium travel card, Venture X. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Hello Houston with Ernie Manouse.
And Michael Adkison.
Howdy.
Hello.
Howdy, Houston.
So how often do people get your name wrong?
How often? 9 times out of 10.
Really?
I'm probably exaggerating, but I used to be a huge stickler for people misspelling my name. And I'm talking when I was like 6 or 7. I would be like, actually, it's Adkison. And then I realized growing up, I'm the weird one. I have the last, like mine is the one that people don't normally say. So I've stopped correcting people.
Yours is the unique name.
It's the unique one, not the weird one, the unique one. Yeah.
And speaking, some people would call it weird, others would call it unique. We were talking Eurovision in the last segment.
Great segue.
You like that one? And you were asking me about, what gets chosen,
It's
basically.
kind of fascinating, yeah.
What people have to remember, so it came about in the late 50s, mid-50s, because Europe was kind of torn apart after World War II, and they wanted to find a way to find unity there. And television was this new thing. So they thought Eurovision for television, let's put on this competition for songs. So it wasn't really about the singers as much as it was about an opportunity to see people singing songs. So each country sent a song. And so even today, it's supposed to be the award is for the songwriters. But as you noticed, we didn't talk about a single songwriter in our conversation. We talked all about the acts because it's become this big overblown event.
I do like that it is just like, it's not even so much the song as much as the experience, that's my way of hamming it up. It's you have the performance, the singing, the songwriting, the spectacle. I think I like that aspect of it, that it's more just about the whole phenomenon.
And I will say it used to be a lot more campy, a lot more outrageous. And in the last few years, winners have gone on to have really strong recording careers. There's a group called Maneskin out of Italy that have become a big rock band because they won Eurovision. So now I think it takes some of the campiness out of it because record labels now are involved saying we got to get our acts to win. So it becomes a little bit more focused on serious music. But there's also the theory that if you're a country and you want to compete, but you really can't afford to host it because the winning country hosts it the next year,
Right.
you send something campy and outrageous because you really don't want to win, but you still want to be in it. So you can gauge who's really serious about bringing it in. But anyway, so that first semifinal starts today at 2 o'clock. You can watch it on YouTube if you want. Otherwise, you can just stay with us here on News 88.7 and listen to all our great coverage all day long. Coming up on this show, we're going to be talking more about FIFA.
I love it.
We're going to
More
be
World Cup.
talking about, are we ready for this influx of people visiting, especially with what we're hearing about the Hunta virus?
Exactly.
We worry about what comes in when you bring in so many people from other lands in. Are we prepared? Are there viruses? And what about them? I just can't imagine people come to visit us and aren't ready for our air quality when it comes to like allergies and all of that.
That's
that
the
must
thing.
Be crazy.
It's like you hope that everyone knows Texas is hot. But even still, when I moved to Houston, I was like, oh, wow, I've lived in Texas my whole life, and Houston's a beast in and of itself in summertime. So making sure people are prepared for the heat and the humidity.
And we're proud to be that beast.
Yes, we are.
We're a beast, not a beast of burden, a beast of joy.
A beast of joy, exactly.
Somebody else has made a huge impact in our community. It's Star of Hope. We'll be focusing on them also on the show today. That is still to come. And with that said, we should get into the real headlines of the day.
These are all real headlines, but here's one that I think a lot of people are going to be interested in, which is that the Texas Attorney General's office has filed a lawsuit against Netflix, accusing them of secretly collecting data about what users watch, the devices they use, and how they interact with the app, and then sharing that information with advertisers and data brokers. Attorney General Ken Paxton also claims Netflix uses features like autoplay to encourage binge watching, especially among children. Paxton said he is suing Netflix under the Texas Deceptive Trade Practices Act, and he wants the company to stop allegedly collecting data illegally, disable autoplay by default on kids' profiles, and face potential civil penalties. Netflix sent a statement to KVUE Austin, who reported about this, calling the lawsuit meritless and based on, quote, inaccurate and distorted information. What are your thoughts on the lawsuit and how Netflix engages with users? Give us a call, 713-440-8870. This, to me, is almost like an extension of the conversation we've had about social media and the practices that they use about collecting information and how they get you to keep using apps. But what do you think, Ernie?
Okay, I'm probably gonna be a little controversial in my opinion on this.
On Hello Houston, no,
never. Actually, the merits of the lawsuit. I'm not exactly sure I know all of it. What information does the Attorney General's office have that leads them to believe all of this is as it is? Because whenever you sign up for any of these things, and none of us ever read them, but we sign agreements and contracts, and so if it's in there, you're signing on to it. That's on you, not on them. The secretly collecting data, do any of us realistically think they do not know what your profile is doing? That it's part of the nature of the beast. It gathers what you watch. It builds profiles. It tells you what you should watch next based on what you have watched. There's thumbs up and thumbs down where you let it know more information about what you liked and didn't like. If you thought that was just in that moment and they weren't collecting and continuing that, I think that's also on you. Now, how they share it with advertisers and data brokers, as you said in the story, that gives me pause. But then again, that goes back to what contract you agree to and sign. The autoplay feature I have an issue with because television just keeps going. If you put your kids in front of a TV screen, when one show is over, another show begins. And if you watch primetime TV, you noticed of late, last 20 years or so, the commercials between shows are much smaller because they want the one show to end and roll right into the next show without that commercial break where people would tune out. So this is an industry standard of keeping you engaged with their platform. Streaming, I don't see that. Now, and you have an option to turn off autoplay. I believe, I know on YouTube you can turn off autoplay. I believed on Netflix you can too. So I don't know. Is this more attention getting for Paxton because he's in this heated runoff and he wants more time. Look what I do for you here in the state. Or am I way off base on what I'm saying? I think that there is merit here to being concerned what all of these companies do with our information and how they sell it and don't sell it. Is Netflix any worse than that? I don't know. But I think they're delivering a service that we sign into. 713-440-8870. Let's see what Nellie thinks from West Chase. Nellie, what's up?
How you doing, Ernie? You literally took the words out of my mouth. I was kind of confused when you first brought it up because I'm like, well, I mean, don't we all? Of course, we all totally read the terms and agreements of all the multiple apps that we have, but I thought it was just kind of par for the course. We all knew these companies are providing a service. They take all of our data, and magically we have commercials that are tailored to all of our likes and needs. So same thought process as you. Is this like kind of like in the same move as Todd Blanche? Is this something to, up his stock, with voters so that he can be the pick-me guy? Like, hey, look what I'm doing for you. Or is there really like valid merit here? And I mean, hey, if Texas wants to be the new California and sue private industries to actually help the consumer, I'm totally not gonna hold him back.
Yeah, Nellie, I think you bring up the point. Is there really a there, as people would say? Because, and I'm happy that your call, I was so sure your call was going to be against what I just said. So I'm so happy this is the first call we took. Nellie, thank you very much for joining us and chatting with us. And if you have an opinion, you want to jump into this conversation, 713-440-8870.
Yeah, I imagine a lot of people are going to have opinions on this one. We all have Netflix, I think. I think we still use Netflix.
Amazing amount of the market has
a million
Netflix.
different streaming services, but a lot of people have Netflix. I think that there's you've certainly hit it on the nose of the question of whether or not we've agreed to it in the terms and conditions. We're paying for Netflix. Of course, there are certain. If it was a free service, I think we'd be having a very different conversation. But the fact that we're paying for it, we're agreeing to the practices, I think that that's a big part of the conversation.
So I would almost go the opposite direction.
Really?
If we're paying for it, then they shouldn't be able to sell our data and stuff because we're paying for a service which is between us and the company. If it was free, I would assume there's some back end where they're making money.
Sure, that's fair. If the product is free, you're where it's coming from. I think what I'm thinking of more is if it was free, anyone could do it, and then suddenly all your data is getting tracked. Versus if I'm paying for it, I'm agreeing to what Netflix has said. I signed the terms and conditions, which I know Nellie joked about. Nobody actually reads those, but
that's a question for our folks out there. 713-440-8870. Do you ever actually read those contracts before you say? And when all the talk was about what's hidden in those, I started reading them. And I'd get about 6 sentences in. I'd be like, whatever. I just want to see this show right now. So, I mean,
So with that, we've got another phone call from Jacob in Kingwood. Jacob, let us know. What do you think about Netflix?
So I was thinking about the fact, he said that we have terms and conditions that we all get when we get these apps.
Yeah.
My argument there is I shouldn't have to be a lawyer to read your terms and conditions to be able to use an app on a daily basis. You should just, the right thing should just be there automatically. We shouldn't have to hire people to read these terms and conditions to find all the loopholes and all the little devils in the details to use things on a daily basis. That stuff should just already be okay.
And Jacob, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I think the argument to it is then just don't do it. Don't sign in. If they show a contract to you where it's too complicated or you don't understand it or it's intentionally done to confuse and dissuade you from reading it, then, don't sign it. Do I really need to see this episode of Kevin Hart finding a stand-up comedian so badly that I would sign away my free will?
Well, it's not about. I don't think it's about that. See, that's kind of. I think we're working backwards there.
Yeah.
We should be able to do the things that we like, and not have to remove ourselves from society or the things we like to do because some guy in a suit made up a contract that nobody wants to read.
Right.
And also the point of our data. Obviously, they're collecting our data. The argument here is selling it to third parties and making money off of our data. I'm all right if they record my watch history to give me better recommendations. But when it comes to selling data that I provide for them and generate, and then they make extra income off of me, that's the issue I think there.
And Jacob, again, what I said before, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think that that's a big part of it is the sale of our information. But then again, I don't know what I agreed to on Netflix, so I think bad on me. But I agree with you. It shouldn't be that complicated that I don't know what I'm signing when I sign those. Thank you, Jacob, for calling. 713-440-8870. We have Don on the line from Kingwood. Don, what do you think? Don, you with me there? There you are.
Yes. I think it's actually John. But
Oh, I'm sorry, John.
Ken Paxton is totally in it for himself. He doesn't give a flip about Houstonians or the rest of Texas. He's only after money and power for himself. And that's the way he's always been and always will be.
John, thank you for those comments. Oh, yeah. Continue.
He has no business doing what he's doing.
Thank you very much, John. I think, though, some people would say, see, isn't he great? He's out there fighting for us, the consumer.
It goes both ways.
Well,
The last thing I'll mention is I think that we're also where a lot of the Attorney General's comments come from is the targeting of children and all this. You know, that it's children's data that's getting collected. It makes me think of the excellent book that came out a couple years ago, I believe, The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, which focuses more so on social media, but the way that the internet has been made to be addictive and the effects that it has on children's and minors' brains is fascinating. It's a very good book. I highly recommend it.
My British computer guy says, Netflix can gather all my watch data. I don't care if they share that. It may help them come up with more programming I like. Just don't sell my address. I agree with that.
There you go.
That's the same way with like when they recommend things for me to buy on Amazon. They usually know better than I know about
it's an opportunity
what I really
cost.
don't need.
It's like, you know, we could harp on Netflix all day. We could keep saying it's deceptive, but at the end of the day, it's tailored to you. It's a way to know what to watch next, what to buy next, what to consume next, and you know, there's a good to that, and there's certainly a bad to that. It goes both ways.
What's the old expression? The road to
two roads diverged.
No, the road to paradise, or the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yes, there you go.
There we go. I knew I'd find it.
Take me down to Paradise City. That's
Right.
what my brain went.
But the thing being, you know, the convenience they give us, and we are so hungry for that convenience to not have to scroll through Netflix to see what to watch. Let them recommend more of what I like. But to get that ease in life, what are we sacrificing along that path?
Sure. We've got another phone call from David from Spring. David, what do you think about all this?
Hey, guys. I don't agree. I think if we're paying for something that they shouldn't be selling our information. Here recently, like I've had problems with spam calls, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, like, I looked it up on the internet. Like, I'm listed in, like, 60 different places on the internet with data brokers and stuff. So there's these services, you know, you can Google remove me, you know, you can Google it, and, like, you'll come up with these services, some free, some you pay for, and they will wipe you out from the internet so that you aren't listed.
That's a great tip. And what inspired you to go and look and see where you were? Was it a number of spam calls you were getting? Was it junk emails?
Well, so what started was I have an 85-year-old aunt that I help take care of, and she was getting scam calls, and I'm literally every 5 to 10 minutes the phone would ring, and it was AI. It wasn't even a real person, but she didn't understand that.
Yeah.
So, and we had just changed her number, and from the second they changed it, they were calling again. And so we called the phone company, and they said, well, we list your number unless you ask us not to.
Huh, fascinating. David, thank you. And thank you for helping to take care of your aunt. You know, that's close to my heart, too, when people are doing that. So I appreciate that when I hear other people. So thank you. Yeah, fascinating topic. And he does bring up good points again. You know, we get an awful lot of spam calls, and we're always on the hunt to block those spam calls when maybe at the front end, if that stuff isn't being shared. But even when you're you're at the store and they say, hey, would you like to sign up for this electric company, and you're signing away on stuff, or we'll send you more information, or, you know, so it's just all there.
Pros and cons. You know, you give something away with all that.
Welcome to the modern society we have created. We are going to take a quick break now. We have got a lot more of Hello Houston still to come. Up next, we're going to talk about being prepared for health emergencies during FIFA World Cup. Coming up right here on Hello Houston on News 88.7. HPM Plus.
We know you value Houston Public Media. That's why you're watching right now. So take the next step and become a new member of the station you rely on. Every gift makes a difference. And what matters most right now is supporting the station that brings you the news and information you rely on. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. So join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
Amy Scott, the ins and outs of cleaner energy, next time on Marketplace.
You want to stay around for Marketplace after all things considered at 6:30 on News 88.7.
Houston Public Media, in partnership with Texas Southern University, brings to you The Vibe, R&B, hip-hop, and neo-soul, music that resonates with all ages. The Vibe on 88.7 HD3 and on the Houston Public Media app.
I want to be very clear. We are not seeing a revival of religiosity. What I am hearing about is a renewed interest or a renewed curiosity in religion. For example, even chaplains at Harvard tell me that in the last 25 years, they haven't seen this much interest in religion on campus.
I'm Michael Barbaro. That's Today on the Daily from the New York Times.
Listen to The Daily tonight at 7 on News 88.7. Support comes from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, a workers' compensation provider committed to helping Texas communities and emphasizing safety. More at texasmutual.com/TexansGetIt. Support also from Central Market Wine Department, featuring hundreds of sparkling wines, rosé wines, and non-alcoholic spirits and spritzers for spring entertaining. More at centralmarket.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Ernie Manouse and guest host Michael Adkison.
As Houston prepares to welcome hundreds of thousands of visitors to the FIFA World Cup this summer, local hospitals and emergency teams are getting ready as well. Memorial Hermann says it has been planning for everything from increased ER traffic to infectious disease concerns during the weeks-long event. Joining us now are Adam Lee, Director of Emergency Management and Organizational Resilience at Memorial Hermann Health System, and Dr. Louis Ostrosky, Chief Epidemiology Officer for Memorial Hermann and Chief of Infectious Diseases at UTHealth Houston. Hello to the both of you, and welcome to Hello Houston.
Thanks for having us.
All right. If you would like to join the conversation, give us a call or text 713-440-8870. Dr. Louis Ostrosky, I'm going to start with you because I think you've got the question that is going to be on everyone's minds. And I'm sure you can guess what that question is, which is the hantavirus. There's a balance of making sure people are prepared and also making sure that we're not overblowing the concern and the situation. What would you say people need to know as we're expecting, hundreds of thousands of people from all across the world?
So I think my quick answer is going to be true, and unrelated. So we know there's a couple of Texas that came back from the cruise that is being affected by hantavirus. Those 2 Texans are being monitored very closely, presumably staying at home, and there's really no cause for concern for them being around and starting something here in town. And as far as the fans go, we're really not concerned about hantavirus with the population that's coming to Houston. We're concerned about other things. Anytime you have a lot of people together, there's going to be respiratory illnesses, diarrheal illnesses. Unfortunately, when you have big events like this, there's increased human trafficking. So we see STDs, for example. And yes, we are going to have some visitors from different parts of the world. And we've been sort of looking at the epidemiological profiles of these countries and just making sure we're ready to, for example, if we have somebody coming from Congo with fever, we want to, quickly rule out malaria and other things, right? So a lot of preparation has been going on, but short answer is we're not really concerned about hantavirus spreading in Houston in any way related to the World Cup.
I just want to put in a programming note here. Tomorrow on the show, Dr. Catherine Troisi will be with us, and we'll be talking about the hantavirus and a little more in depth on that particular issue. To go back, though, really quickly to what you're saying, I'm curious, in today's day and age of our global economy, Is it different the way we look at these diseases traveling when you have a big mass of people? Or already is what's plaguing these different countries that would be coming from Europe or for World Cup, are they already here? Are we so interconnected that that's no longer a true issue?
So you're absolutely right. We can be anywhere in the world within 12 to 23 hours. Houston is a hugely international city. So we routinely see people, coming in from Africa with a strange and interesting parasitic disease. We see people coming from Mexico, from, Germany all the time. So I think hospitals in Houston are generally very well prepared to assess international travelers and immigrants. We're just kind of dusting off those plans and making sure we're ready for large amounts of these occurrences.
All right, Adam, I want to turn to you. I think that, with hantavirus, it's one of those things that there's a lot of speculation. One thing we are almost guaranteed to expect is heat and heat exhaustion. How much of a concern is that going to be as we head into the World Cup?
Well, I think it's important just to call out proper hydration first, but as we get countries that maybe have never experienced a Texas summer or the level of heat, it's just important to call out, are you staying hydrated? Are you doing the right things for your body to not experience a heat exhaustion? And if you do, I would call out, what are you going to the right sites of care? Meaning not all medical issues require you to go to the emergency room here and now. If it's a life-threatening concern or issue that you're having, of course, go to that emergency room. But we have urgent cares that exist that can see you almost immediately and address many of those non-critical ailments that a person may experience. So I'd just say, pay attention to your body and do what's best for you. And if you believe you need medical care, seek it.
We just a couple days ago were doing a story which we've heard so much in the news about the shortage of nurses and healthcare professionals out there. And so we already know we're strained in this community. When you bring in that many more people, what is staffing like? Are you thinking, when you have a music festival, you can see security increases so much in the same park that would be smaller before that. So talking about something this large, how prepared are we in that regard?
That's a great question. And I think we need to also remember we are in Houston, Texas, where we have more medical infrastructure than in many states or many countries in some capacities. And services available here are in a much more robust fashion. Of course, strains exist, and I'm sure that, those impacts are continually, something to watch. But I think, we're going to continue to add folks, and Houston's not new to hosting large events. The rodeo is a very comparable thing that occurs where, there's 1 million people that'll attend that over a month period. So I think it's just,
Do you ramp up during rodeo? Do you ramp up during rodeo?
We're monitoring consistently, so it's kind of always having a finger on the pulse in this line of work to see what's going on, but not necessarily operational changes of vast degrees. We have many regulatory requirements that require us to do so many drills or exercises or on certain topics, whether it's mass casualty incident preparedness or infectious disease preparedness. So we're always doing something. It's how do we tailor it? Are we making it more football related? Are we making it more Super Bowl related? What's that event that we're choosing? Is it a hurricane down here? So it just really depends, what that threat landscape looks like for the year.
Talking about ramping up, and you mentioned that you keep your finger on the pulse when it comes to the rodeo. To what extent are you, quote unquote, ramping up for the World Cup? What does that look like, boots on the ground?
So I think Dr. Ostrosky alluded to it earlier. It's connecting with him early on to say, are there any infectious diseases we're concerned about from countries that are maybe in group play here? And getting that information and saying, do we have the right equipment in place for those things? Do we have the right resources, the right training? As we look at our training program for the year, how do we align that with, the different maybe infectious diseases that we could see? So it's working with our industry leaders that we have at Memorial Hermann and UTHealth to say, what are our concerns? And then how are we addressing them through our education programs and plans?
Dr. O, were there any particular ones you mentioned to them in these discussions?
So again, we want to prepare for large amounts of respiratory illnesses, diarrheal illnesses as well. Lunchtime, not a great topic, I know, but We also are preparing for, like we discussed, sexually transmitted disease, parasitic diseases. One thing, that we early on identified as a possibility were, people coming from, let's say, Congo with malaria. So we not only sort of are teaching about malaria to all of our providers, but we're making sure we have the malaria medication that we need throughout the system. Again, keep in mind that we're coming up to a month where we're going to play 7 Super Bowls in a row, or the equivalent of that. FanFest, there's Freedom Over Texas, there's a Republican Texas convention here. There's going to be a lot of people in Houston, and basically my message to my staff is maybe don't take vacation in July. Let's be around, right? And that we have traffic to deal with as well. So a lot of people are talking about remote work. Well, you're a Houston resident. There's a lot of planning going around.
What about vaccines, being caught up on vaccines? Are you recommending people make sure they have certain things in place already?
So we always sort of want people to stay up with their vaccines. This is not the flu season, but we are having people coming from the southern hemisphere where it is flu season. So again, if you're caught up with your flu shots, COVID vaccines as well, and in general, we don't expect anything else for this. Just a generally good idea to be caught up on your vaccines.
Dr. Lee, did we learn anything from the COVID pandemic that helps influence how we approach these things now?
I wouldn't even say it's the COVID pandemic. I think we learn from every event that we have, and we try to find that one thing that we could have done a little better or a little differently. I think that, again, we're very fortunate in Houston to have world industry leaders on a lot of these topics. So this largest sporting event to ever occur in Houston is just going to be very different because it's going to be spread out through the greater Houston area. So I think where maybe we focus on a medical center for a response, it's more about community hospitals. So it's looking at the things we've learned through different lenses.
Kind of going off of that, a couple of questions for you about preparations. Dr. Ostrosky mentioned staff not taking vacations in June and July. When we've talked to other local officials and heard from them about any concerns that they have with the World Cup, one of their concerns that they've mentioned is that, yes, we're going to be prepared for this massive phenomenon coming to Houston, but we still need to be prepared for everything else that happens in Houston on a regular basis. With that in mind, how are you guys preparing for that scenario where, yes, there are still going to be car crashes, there's still going to be your everyday accidents that happen?
Obviously, that's the priority, the everyday happenings. I think that we're looking kind of through 3 lenses. One is your everyday occurrence, one is football-related activities, and then one are all the other disasters that occur in that month period. We'll be entering hurricane season here in a few months, so that's another call-out that, rain in Texas sometimes leads to flooded roadways, turn around, don't drown, things that people may not be used to, where we could just see influx of people if we have another disaster that kind of compounds what we experience on a day-to-day.
When you talk about that list of things and you say, hurricane season coming in and different sporting events and Freedom Over Texas, for each one of those, is it a different activation for you folks, or is it basically the same one just in scale?
It's the same type of activation and scale with different subject matter experts. So if we're dealing with an infectious disease, of course, Dr. Ostrosky is going to be on the call front and center, leading with insights. If we're focusing on hurricane response, it's a different subset of expertise in terms of like hospital operations and clinical operations that we're going to focus on in terms of what are we going to be providing to staff and how.
A side note to what you said a couple moments ago too, I'm wondering, is there a reassurance to residents that they are still going to get the care and the ability to be able to be treated as they were when this isn't here? Can you guarantee them that, or are they going to have to be like, hey, there's a whole lot more people here, we're going to have to be spread thin?
I think I can guarantee for Memorial Hermann, if you come to a Memorial Hermann site, you will receive care. As always, as volumes increase, and that's why the right sites of care is so important. We want to make sure you go to the right site for the right level of care. So if you need that life-threatening care, you go to the ER, you will be taken care of. If you have a lower acuity, non-life-threatening injury and you can get to an urgent care, it could be a little quicker in terms of the volume of people and the expectation that you have.
One of the other concerns that we've heard, or concerns is maybe putting it too strongly, one of the other challenges that we've heard local officials face with the World Cup that's different than, say, a Super Bowl is the longevity of this, that we're talking about, with the matches that are actually in Houston, it's 7 matches across 3 weeks. If we're talking about the fan festival, that's 39 days, where all these things are a possibility. Does that add an increased challenge to the healthcare system, shall we say?
Well, I don't think the longevity alone is the sole strainer of the health system. I think it's the longevity, the event that's spread out. You're going to have a lot of people moving to and from maybe different cities as they, hey, I want to watch this team play here or go travel there. So you're going to see just a lot of congestion and movement potentially if the projections and numbers hold true. So I think it's all of these factors that alone, they're not great, but you start putting them together and it's creating a scenario where it's really not great. So it's just, we'll see how many of those things hold true and then what those impacts actually turn out to be. But we plan for the worst and then, we hope for the best.
You're here talking with us, getting the word out to our community. I'm curious, has FIFA coordinated with our health authority here in any way? And have they then taken a message out to that global audience that's coming in, what they should be aware of, what they should be concerned with coming here, especially like we talked about coming to Houston, about the temperature and the heat stroke possibility? Yeah. Do they do any of that educating out that you know of?
Yes, is the easy answer. The more complex answer is we have what's called the Regional Advisory Council, which is something, the Regional Healthcare Preparedness Coalition. All of our healthcare entities and care delivery sites are members of this, and they help kind of coordinate calls or get information out on topics, and they've been very engaged as an organization. And I actually saw an article the other day that called Houston one of the more prepared sites for what's happening. So I think it's just a general call out to the world-class expertise we have in this region, in first responders and in this just area in terms of preparedness.
That may have been one of our articles we've been covering. FIFA has said that, Houston is one of the leading cities when it comes to preparations, and many of the local officials have said something similar. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. Dr. Ostrosky, another question for you. I know you've mentioned the Democratic Republic of Congo a couple of times, that they're, of course, going to have a base camp here in Houston. But are there any other countries or points of origin that you're watching for or monitoring based off of what activity is happening over there as far as infectious diseases go?
Yeah, so primarily we have some European teams coming over. We have Democratic Republic of Congo. We have Cape Verde, which is something I had to learn to pronounce recently. And we have Saudi Arabia as well. So again, primarily our main concern is infection-wise, the amount of people, not necessarily where they're from. And particularly for Congo, we're preparing for some malaria. We see that occasionally. There's currently not an Ebola outbreak in Congo. They do have some Mpox, which is something we have locally, so we are very used to dealing with that as well. And for Saudi Arabia, we occasionally see MERS outbreaks there, which is another respiratory virus. And again, we've dealt with that before, and we're ready to receive any patient with that.
All right. Adam, just final thoughts. People are going to hear the story and are going to say, it's a little shocking or frightening to talk about diseases and what could come and what the hospital system is going to look like. So I'd just love to hear your thoughts. What would you want viewers and listeners to know right now?
I know I hit on it, but the right sites of care is a big one for me because, if you want to be seen and it's the right level of care at the right place at the right time, and that's your recipe of success. Outside of that, make sure you're signed up for your mass alert system for the community you live in, because they do send out a lot of great information, whether it's City or if you live in Katy or Sugar Land. They all have their version of a mass communication system that they send out information on. So make sure you're plugged into your community or you're following your Instagram of whomever it is that you trust and get the information you need, because having the right information so you can make an informed decision as an individual is the most important thing.
All right. Adam Lee is the Director of Emergency Management and Organizational Resilience resilience at Memorial Hermann Health System. And Dr. Louis Ostrosky is Chief Epidemiology Officer for Memorial Hermann and Chief of Infectious Diseases at UTHealth Houston. Thank you to you both for coming on Hello Houston.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, Star of Hope. Stay with us as we learn about this important group on Hello Houston.
On the next Fresh Air, Joanne.
It's not just your car. It's the one that brought your kids home from school, took you cross-country, held memories, laughter, even a few breakdowns. When it's time to let go, give your car a new purpose. Donate it and turn memories into meaningful support for this station. Plus, you'll enjoy free and easy pickup, potential tax benefits, and a simple donation process. Your gift supports the programs you and your family love. Donate today and help keep public media strong. Call or donate online.
The heart can acutely weaken in response to heartbreak or grief. It's sort of the organ on which our emotions are most deeply written.
How Heartache Changes Us. That's next time on the TED Radio Hour from NPR.
The TED Radio Hour tonight at 10.
There is strength in speaking truth to power, but you have to find the opportunity.
If we can't create the prisms so people can see them more clearly, then we can't transform them.
Kimberly Crenshaw on her work in critical race theory and why she feels all people have the power to push for change. That's next time on Think.
Listen to Think tonight at 11 here on News 88.7. Support for Houston Public Media comes from DePelchin Children's Center. May is National Foster Care Awareness Month, and DePelchin is celebrating the foster parents who ensure that Houston area children are part of safe and loving families. Learn more at depelchin.org/fostercare. Support also from Metro. World Cup planning includes transit improvements intended to serve the Houston area. After the final match, Metro provides bus, rail, and paratransit service and continues mobility enhancements across the region. More at ridemetro.org/MetroNow.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now Ernie Manouse and guest host Michael Adkison.
Star of Hope is a Christ-centered ministry located in the Houston area that's dedicated to serving the spiritual, emotional, and physical needs of those experiencing homelessness in our community. Established in 1907, the ministry has been guided by these principles since their founding, and today stands as one of the nation's oldest and largest homeless shelters. To tell us more about their work and its impact on our community, we're joined by Doug Meikle, President and CEO of Star of Hope. Doug, welcome to Hello Houston.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Just start up. Tell us a little bit about your organization and the work that you do.
Well, I think a good way to start is that each day we get a census, how many people are in our care. And this morning, I think it was 922. Yeah. So on average, we care for throughout the year around 950, and that goes up to close to 1,000, sometimes as low as 890 or so. But today, 922, of which 250 are children. These are men, single men, women, and their families that would otherwise be on the street. We house probably and care for around a third of Houston's homeless. We actually have beds for around a half of Houston's housed homeless. So we're a pretty important organization in the city's quest to care for the homeless in Houston. And we've been doing it for a long time. So we've been doing it for 118 years and look forward to doing it for the next 118 years. Yeah.
Pull out a little bit on this whole topic. And we've talked about this quite a bit on the show over the time, so I'm just curious your opinion and thought on it. We, Star of Hope, other organizations do a fabulous job of helping those who find themselves in this situation. From where you sit, what can we as a society, as a city, as a county be doing to not get to this point in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a complex answer. We live in a complex world, and this is one of its complex problems. A couple of context points I think are important. I think first is we will always probably have to deal with homeless because there are systems in place in the world in which we live that create homelessness. I think Houston is a recipient of many people who are paroled out of the criminal justice system. There's not a lot of resources around those folks when they come out of that system, and they are oftentimes end up in homelessness. I think also addiction is a real problem. If you listen to the folks who are in our care, their story is often one of addiction, abandonment, abuse, and loss. Those factors will continue into the future, probably. That's the nature of the world in which we live. So therefore, we'll be dealing with homelessness for as long as we're here in Houston, Texas. Now some positives for you. I think that Houston has a couple of very good structural advantages. Houston has around 3,000 to 4,000 homelessness and the point in time count for around 4+ million people in Harris County. That number for, say, Portland or Seattle is around 30,000 for a population a quarter the size. So Houston has, obviously, there are many times when homelessness affects the quality of life, not only of the person experiencing it, but those around them. And when that's you and your situation, that's a problem. But nevertheless, Houston has managed this problem pretty well, and it does so because of really two very important factors. One is structural. Houston has what the folks call flexible land use. What that means is that we have no zoning, ultimately. There are very little zoning. So it's easy to build things, and easy to build things at other places. There'd be too many folks and too many regulations in the way. And then the second thing is I'm told, this is not new to me. I spent my career in the oil and gas business, so I had no idea about this kind of thing. We tend to have a community here that's pretty cooperative. So we have many agencies involved in the care of the homelessness. When Star of Hope does its work, we started this year our Partner Appreciation Day. We had around, I think, 75 different people there from more than 50 different agencies that we regularly work with. So there's a whole ecosystem of folks in this world to care for the homeless. And generally, we've got a pretty good working relationship with each other. And I think that's not true everywhere. And that's a strange thing to say because the only folks that we care about as winners and losers are the folks who are in our care. But there's also the flow of funds and government funds and all these things that tend to sometimes distort as well as help the folks that the markets that they support.
Is there something Star of Hope does or sees differently than maybe other organizations that have led to your success?
Well, I mean, fundamentally, we're a Christian organization. And I think that helps us, what we think that helps us to see.
Let me pause you right there and explain what you mean when you say that.
And that's what I was going to get to. I think, at least from our perspective, we see the world as it truly is, that the world is broken, that it will always be broken. One of the kind of fundamental things that we have to do as human beings is figure out who are we, why am I here, and what am I supposed to do while I'm here. I think we spend tremendous amounts of time with the men and women in our care on those very fundamental questions. I'm kind of new to this, and what I was surprised by, though, this is a genuine surprise to me, is that we have intake and we ask people questions about what's going on in their life, etc. One of the things, when you ask them, well, what's up? They'll ask questions like, is there God? They'll ask questions like, could he care for me? More importantly, more personal questions. Can I be forgiven for the things that I have done wrong? Can I forgive those who have done wrong to me? It is true that we're a religious organization. Folks know that. 80% of the people who come into our care know that we are and want that. So maybe our sample is distorted in that way, right? But for the folks in our care, they feel that kind of orientating sense of who am I, why am I here, what am I supposed to do, how do I love my neighbor well? Those kind of things are as important as, can I get food and shelter over my head? Can I get shelter over my head? Can I get food in my stomach? Those are a set of questions. So if you were to ask us, we'd say, hey, we deal with the whole person. And the whole person really needs to be dealt with because these kind of foundational questions drive some of the behaviors that end up causing homelessness. Maybe it's interesting for you guys to know that for most of the folks in our care, their journey it takes about 7 years or so, some of the research shows, to become chronically homelessness. And it's a series of events. But one foundational event is the breakup of the family and the community, the community of which one they're a part of. So what we tend to do also is when folks are in our care, we will be trying to rebuild those relationships with the family that they've lost or the community that they came from. You and I, us three here, we've got lots of relationships in our lives that if something went wrong, we'd have someone to pick us up. They're probably so embedded in your life, you don't even realize that they're there. For the men and women in my care, all of those are gone. They're all gone by this point. So what we have to do is we have to build these folks up and rebuild the relationships that they have with each other. And that does not happen in a short period of time. And one of the things we're deeply concerned about is, at least that's something that's settled on me, is that folks can be they're in my care for an average of around 90 days. That ranges from folks who are here today and gone tomorrow, all the way to folks that are with us for around 12 months or so. But nevertheless, if they're with me for 12 months, people don't leave my care fixed. They have to go into a community that continues to care for them. So we feel as Star of Hope that if we do things like this, why do we do it? Because we need to call on others to be a caring community for the people that leave our care. And there's only so much of this burden that we can carry, and we'll carry it well, we hope. But we want our community to know and understand is that when men and women leave our care, there's much work to be done. There's much work to be done.
1907 is when your organization was founded, many, many years ago.
Sure.
And I know you haven't been here since 1907.
No, not been here, no.
But that being said, how has the conversation around homelessness changed in that time?
Yeah.
And what does it mean in 2026 to be unhoused?
Yeah, so let me the last question first, I think, and I don't know these things terribly well, but you can go look up the HUD site and it will categorize various forms of homelessness. And I think that categorization, I think, is important because it helps one understand that there needs to be multiple solutions, if you like, for a problem this complex, So there's, for example, the housed and the unhoused homeless. Folks who are in my care are typically categorized as the housed homeless, that they have a roof over their head, they're getting sustenance each day. And then there's a category, the unhoused. That's the folks that you will meet on the street, And but there are several subcategories of that, and I think that's something where we all work, because we all work together in the continuum of care here in Houston, the Coalition for the Homeless. So it's useful for us to kind of know just simply to know what we're talking about, to have some working categorization like that. I think, how has it changed? I think it's changed dramatically in this sense. If you look at these kinds of Christian missions across America, they're all the oldest, So there was first a sense of folks who went along to church and they saw the person under the bridge, or in this case, the person at Allen's Landing who was working in the Port of Houston and had nowhere to go. And you had this kind of sense of their fellow human being, their love thy neighbor, and we need to take care of these folks. I think that has been joined by a whole bunch of other folks who are there for many of the same reasons and other different reasons. And we work that sense of being a community that helps others, that folks less fortunate than ourselves in our own community. I think that's changed dramatically. It used to be a care of only one group of people, and I think it's largely now, it's at least top of mind for many people in Houston.
Is it, and this is a terribly inappropriate question to ask,
Sure,
but I'll wander
go
into
ahead,
it anyway.
Go after it.
I think oftentimes people who see homeless on the street don't see them as people anymore. They have become this group that's out there that is bothersome. And now, from where you sit, the message to people in understanding, what do you say?
Well, it's difficult to say this without getting emotional, but so let me tell you about what I've learned. I think it's better some days to talk to them and say, hey, you need to do a better job. Let me tell you, bear witness to what I've learned. I was the man who would drive my car and drive past the man or woman at the end of the street and say, I wonder what happened to that. I wonder what that guy did to get in this problem. Now I know that in many, many cases, the better question is, I wonder what that man or woman has endured, what they have overcome. Because when you hear the stories of many of the men and women in my care, you and I may have, by the end of that story, murdered someone or been in jail. Whereas here's a woman with her 2 kids who's been sleeping in her car for 3 weeks, trying desperately to find a home for those 3 kids. So the closer one gets to the problem, the better you understand it. That's true in many cases, of course. But in this particular case, you start to see the story behind the statistic. And that is profoundly helpful to understand this. And, at the end of the day, the folks that are in our care, they're not easy to deal with. The folks that you meet that are troublesome and bothersome. And folks ask me all the time, what should I do? And oftentimes, you've got to be incredibly careful. It's not many people in the homeless community that could be dangerous or violent, but there are some. And you and I don't necessarily know the person that we're meeting when we have that confrontation. So that's a consideration that we all need to have. But I just want you guys to know that here in Houston, I think we have established a pretty good reputation and for the care of these folks.
Yeah, we've got to wrap up. But Doug Meikle, thank you so much for your time. President and CEO of Star of Hope, thank you for joining us on Hello Houston.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And that brings us to the end of the show today. We thank you for watching, for listening to Hello Houston. We'll be back tomorrow with more conversation. We'll have with us Harris County Clerk Tanisha Hudspeth. Will be here about upcoming elections and voter fatigue. That's tomorrow on Hello Houston, right here on News 88.7.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altide, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, a workers' compensation provider that's been caring for hardworking Texans for over 30 years. More at texasmutual.com/expert partner. This is your NPR station.